elect. I recognize the gentleman from Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm proud to represent over half the tribes in Arizona. I also serve on the House Homeland Security Committee, where just like last week, we talked about the dangerous impact of the Biden administration's radical, inhumane border policies on children who have been trafficked and gone missing. I know that many tribal communities tragically face the murder and disappearance of far too many individuals, a problem that has no doubt been exacerbated by this crisis at the border. Mr. Addington, I'd like to start with you. How is BIA's Office of Justice Services working with tribal law enforcement to combat the flow of illicit drugs in Indian country?
Thank you for that question. Our BIA Division of Drug Enforcement is working hand in hand with tribal law enforcement departments to make sure that we're providing the support to them to address any illicit drug activity that's occurring on their reservations. And we're also doing our mobile enforcement team operations, where we actually go out and work with the tribe and set these operations up to where we come in after we get intelligence, and we bring a surge of officers, mainly drug enforcement agents and canine units, to where we go in and we target these areas, and we try to disrupt and dismantle these drug organizations that's operating in or around Indian country.
What does that typically look like, sir? Do you guys have monthly conference calls so that you can be up to date with what's going on and what's needed?
So we usually will, our district offices will usually hear from tribes, and they talk to us about having problems in their areas, and then our Division of Drug Enforcement will usually reach out and start talking to the tribal chief of police, and then we start having that dialogue, and then we set our Met deployments up, start having meetings, start talking about what they want to address. So we just did one at San Carlos. They was having an issue with shots being fired down. They had a lot of gun calls down there. So we actually sent a team down there to not only work on their shooting calls, but also drug activity, different things like that. So we worked with the tribal chief of police. We sent a group down there and done an operation, and those usually can go from anywhere from 3 days, they could go to 2 weeks. The one we just did at Yakima, where we teamed up with the DEA, that operation was like 160 days long. So we sent people in and out of that operation for 160 days, and then we had a drug agent on the ground there locally.
Thank you. In your testimony, you described how drug traffickers often set up distribution operations in proximity to tribal communities by developing close relationships with local tribal residents. How can tribal leaders intervene?
So, and we've talked to tribal leaders a lot about this, and we see tribal leaders now trying to educate, tribal members, because one of the things that happens out there is, if you have a economically diverse location where there's not a whole lot of jobs or anything, these drug cartels will come in and target those vulnerable people. They go find either a young woman or a young man that's vulnerable. They start making contact with them. They give them some money. They start, moving into their houses. Next thing you know, they're set up in their house, and you become a stash house or a house where they're distributing drugs right there on the reservation or nearby. So we try to educate tribal leaders, and tribal leaders are trying to educate tribal members to be on the lookout for this. Just because somebody's trying to offer you something, they may have an alternative motive. Don't just be taking things from somebody unless you know that person.
Is that very often for you guys to see actual stash houses or distribution houses set up on reservations?
Yes, we know routes where the drug trafficking comes up the West Coast, comes across on reservations or stash houses. We get a lot of intel through our Division of Drug Enforcement and DEA, where stash houses where they come and stash the drugs, and then it gets distributed on across the whole northern tier of the United States. And it's not just the northern tier, but we see a lot of it coming up the West Coast and going across the northern tier in our northern states that affect a lot of the reservations up there.
Do you guys typically have success with the prosecutions because it's taking place on tribal land, or is it more difficult for you to get successful prosecutions in those cases?
I think it depends on the region that we're in. Most regions are really good at prosecuting, but then you have some regions where you have you know, where you have border crimes that's occurring, or you have other federal crimes where the workload is really high. So maybe Indian country may not get crimes prosecuted that you might get prosecuted somewhere else just because of the workload.
Thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.